Hi there. I thought we'd do a quick presentation reviewing a very common and very serious uh, sentence level error, the run-on sentence. This is an error pattern that several of you identified as being a weakness in your writing. And so I thought it would be time well spent if we went over a little bit of review on this concept of how to identify, how to correct, and ultimately how to avoid run-on sentences. So that's what we're going to do in the next few slides. Sit back and enjoy it. Take some notes. Hopefully you'll be a little better off at the end of it. A sentence's length has nothing to do with whether or not it's a run-on sentence. In fact, writers can and often do write very long sentences that can be structurally fine. They can be grammatically correct. A run-on sentence is one in which two independent clauses have been connected incorrectly. Run-on sentences typically fall into one of two categories. A run-on sentence can usually be called or identified as a fused sentence, or it might be a comma splice. Let's talk first about the fused sentence. A fused sentence is really the most ugly, most egregious kind of run-on sentence, because the fused sentence occurs when a writer fuses two independent clauses with no punctuation. In other words, the writer has strung together two sentences without the appropriate punctuation. Now, a clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. And if we remember from high school or maybe another English class, a clause is simply a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. And clauses can be independent or they can be dependent. Independent clauses have a subject and a verb, and they express a complete thought. A dependent clause, on the other hand, may have a subject and a verb, but the clause, when it is read, does not express a complete thought. As the bus rolled down the street, period. See, that's an example of a dependent clause. It has a subject and a verb, but it doesn't express a complete thought. As the bus rolled down the street, what happened? What happened to the bus? See, we don't know. So let's look at our sample here. The lawn needed mowing, the man rested in the shade. This is, again, a great example of a fused sentence. We should be able to look at this and notice that there are two independent clauses here. The lawn needed mowing, the man rested in the shade. When a writer just fuses these two independent clauses together, this creates the most, again, serious and really the most, really it's just the ugliest kind of sentence error there is. We need to join independent clauses correctly. We often do. We can join them through a semicolon. We can join them through a comma and a coordinating conjunction. We can subordinate one of the clauses to the other. We can put a period and start a new sentence with the second independent clause. All right, now let's talk about the fused sentence's first cousin, the comma splice. A comma splice occurs when a writer splices or joins two independent clauses with a comma. So here we have basically the same independent clauses. The man needed the man. The lawn needed mowing. The man rested in the shade. We can see that the writer has attempted to punctuate this sentence correctly, but really all the writer has done is traded one major error for another. The writer has taken a fused sentence and simply turned it into a comma splice by putting a comma to splice or join these two sentences. And folks, a comma is a very weak punctuation mark, and it doesn't have the strength to hold together these two very independent clauses. Let's think of an independent clause as an independently operated train headed west, getting connected to another train headed east. Nothing but grief will result from coupling these train clauses incorrectly. For example, I don't know if you can hear my typewriter that I have going in the background. Some students think they can study for an important exam by cramming all night. They are probably wrong. This is an example of a comma splice. We have two independent clauses that have been spliced. That is to say, they've been joined using a comma. Some students think they can study for an important exam cramming all night. They are probably wrong. This is an example of the dreaded comma splice. A comma splice connects two independent clauses with only a comma. You see, you can't do that. That's always wrong. There are several ways to fix a comma splice. Before we look at how to fix the comma splice, let's look at three situations at least where run-on sentences are apt to happen. One scenario is when a pronoun in the second clause refers to a noun in the first clause. The president's popularity has plummeted. She apparently underestimated the opposition. So we can see the comma and we can see the pronoun that is referring back to the president. But this is still grammatically incorrect. This is a comma splice. Another scenario is that happens when a suggestion or a directive occurs in the second clause. You will be responsible for this material on the final exam. Study it thoroughly now. This likewise is a comma splice because we have two independent clauses that have been joined using a comma. Finally, very common, probably the most common type of comma splice I see is number three. When two clauses are connected by a transitional expression, oftentimes this transitional expression is a conjunctive adverb, a word like however, consequently, moreover, furthermore, therefore, thus, words of that nature. Many people think protectionism can halt rising prices. However, the opposite is actually true. This is a comma splice as well. The problem happens right where the red circle, suggests that it does. That comma right there needs to be a stronger punctuation mark. We either need to put a period there or we need to put a semicolon there. Here's one way to fix it, a comma splice. I mentioned earlier that the comma alone is too weak a punctuation mark. So what writers can do is use a comma and a coordinating conjunction to join two independent clauses. So this is one way to fix the comma splice. You already have the comma there. Add the appropriate coordinating conjunction to express the idea between the two clauses. The president's popularity has plummeted, and she apparently underestimated the opposition. You will be responsible for this material on the final exam. Study it thoroughly now. So again, another possible way to correct the comma splice is to put a period there. These are independent clauses after all, and an independent clause is a sentence. It has a subject and a verb, and it expresses a complete thought. Many people think protectionism can halt rising prices. However, the opposite is actually true. So these are comma splices that have been corrected in at least three different ways: by using a comma and the coordinating conjunction, by putting the period and then beginning a new sentence, or by putting the semicolon and the conjunctive adverb and the comma. So, as I said, we can insert a period and start a new sentence. We can insert a comma plus a coordinating conjunction. We can use the semicolon. We can use the semicolon and a conjunctive adverb. So these are four different ways that we can go about fixing a run-on sentence, whether it's a fused sentence or whether or not it's a comma splice. Now you'll never write a run-on sentence again. Hey guys, okay, I thought we might run through and practice a few sentences together. Here, let me see if I can get where I need to be, and I don't know if I will be able to. Um, okay, let me get a pen here. I tend to like green more than red for all obvious reasons. Okay, what we're going to do is look at some of these sentences and go through them and see if we can fix them in an appropriate way. Let's look at this first sentence, which begins here. I first met Angie in high school. We were in the same class. This, I hope you see, is probably the most serious kind of error. This is that fused sentence. And so the problem occurs right here, doesn't it? We have two independent clauses. I first met Angie in high school, and then we were in the same class. This is a fused sentence, and so we have to fix it. One of the ways that we can fix it is to um, put a semicolon there, and now it's correct. Semicolon is strong punctuation. It can join two related independent clauses. We can use the comma and a coordinating conjunction. I first met Angie in high school and we were in the same class. This is correct. Let me ask you this. Is this correct? Can we put a comma there? You should be saying no. We cannot just simply put a comma there, because then what we've done is we've taken a fused sentence and we've simply made it into a comma splice. Another way of doing it is we could say, how about subordinating one of these clauses? When I first met Angie in high school, we were in the same class. This works. We can take one of those clauses, the first one, and we can subordinate it by making it a dependent clause. So that's one way to fix it. Another way, of course, is to, probably the simplest, is to put a period there and make it into a new sentence. Capitalize the first letter of the second independent clause. All right. So let's leave it corrected, though, shall we? Let's do that. Number two, Meredith's auburn hair always looks a bit messy. She dresses in clothes that look several sizes too large for her lanky body. Poor Meredith. This is a comma splice. The problem occurs right here. We have two independent clauses that have been spliced or joined using a comma. Comma can't do that. Comma's too wimpy. Okay. We can put a, how about we change that to a semicolon? There we go. Or if we wanted to get fancy, we could use the semicolon and one of those conjunctive adverbs. That works. Let's look at the third one. His feet hurt from the long hike. His stomach, however, well, that's just a bad sentence altogether. Let's do this. Well, this is good. This is a terrible sentence. I was cutting and pasting things around, and this one got obviously butchered. His feet hurt from the long hike. Let's take these out. However, his stomach was not growling. All right, so the problem would be here, if we had a comma there, this would be the comma splice. And we know that this needs to be a semicolon. Now we're correct, because we have an independent clause here, and we have an independent clause here. We know it's an independent clause because you've got a subject and you've got a verb, you've got a subject and a verb here, and they each could stand alone as a sentence. Let's look at the next one. My parents bought me an ant farm. It's going to be hard to find a tractor that small. Haha. Well, this is a comma splice, and you should be aware of that by now. The problem, of course, happens here. This is where the wheels come off the wagon, and so we need to fix it. And we can fix it in one of the numerous ways that we've talked about. We could put a period there, like this, and then capitalize its. That's one way to fix it. We could add the coordinating conjunction there, because this works. The comma and the coordinating conjunction can be used to join the independent clauses. It's the comma alone where you get into trouble. Okay, so let's leave it like that. And then let's look at the last one. We've been awake all night. Is this okay, or is this not okay? What do you think? It's okay, isn't it? It's a very simple sentence. We've been awake all night. Subject, verb, and a complete idea. Maybe we'll do one more. How about this one? We keep the suitcases down in the corner. I mean, down in the basement. They are over in the corner. This one is, well, what are you thinking? You tell me what to do. Where does the problem happen as you read this sentence? We keep the suitcases down in the basement. They are over in the corner. This is a run-on sentence. And what kind is it? It's a fused sentence. And the problem happens right there. That's where the fusing happens. So we have to fix it. Let's put a semicolon there. They are over in the corner. One thing you cannot do, remember, is to do this. Because when you simply put a comma there, all you've done is gone from a fused sentence to a comma splice. Okay? So let's put the semicolon. How about this next one? The little boy who plays with our daughter is mean. He should be spanked. Yeah, he should, shouldn't he? All right. What kind of error is this? Or is it correct? You tell me. Is it correct? Is it a fused sentence or is it a comma splice? What do you think? It's a comma splice. The problem is here. We have an independent clause here, and we have an independent clause there. And we cannot use a comma ever to splice two or to join two independent clauses. Okay, so let's fix it. How about let's subordinate one. Let's use a subordinating conjunction. Lowercase that. Because the little boy who plays with our daughter is mean, comma, he should be spanked. This is okay. And what we've done now is made this one not an independent clause, but it's now a dependent clause. It's a dependent clause because this clause, everything that comes up to the comma, cannot stand alone. Listen to me as I read it. Because the little boy who plays with our daughter is mean. See, it's a clause, has a subject and has a verb, right? The subject is boy, verb is, but it can't stand alone. It's not a complete thought. It's a dependent clause because it really depends on the independent clause for it to make sense, for it to complete the thought. Let's look at it. Well, how many more have we got? How about we have three more? Let's do these. People gossip all of the time. This is not nice. Well, no, it's not nice. And the sentence is equally not nice. This is a terrible sentence. This is a fused sentence. You look at this sentence right now, read it to yourself, and you come up with in your mind where the problem happens. I know where it happens, but do you? The problem happens right there. Okay, that's where the infraction happens. That's where one independent clause ends and the other one begins. And the writer has just fused them together, just crammed them together. You can't do that. It's wrong 365 days of the year. I promise you. People gossip all of the time. Let's do a comma. Can we do that? Does that fix it? You tell me. Does that fix it? Can I just put a comma there? If you said yes, you're wrong. If you said no, you're right. Right? We can't put a comma there. This is a comma splice. But we can, the comma, remember I told you is weak. You can use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. People gossip all of the time, comma, and this is not nice. This is okay because we've used a comma and a coordinating conjunction to join two sentences. And that's one of the major comma rules there is. Bob was drinking more than anyone else at the bar. Then we had to call him a taxi. Hey, Bob, you're a taxi. No, this is, ask yourself, is this correct or is this incorrect? I hope you're saying that it's incorrect. This is a comma splice right here. So we have to fix it. Why don't we do this? Well, yeah, let's do it this way. We can just, let's change the comma to a semicolon. And now we're okay. And then finally, let's do this last one. This is a true statement from my biographical past. When I was little, my brother tried to feed me flies. He told me they were raisins. That's maybe one reason why my brother and I don't get along. No, we've patched things up, but it was an unpleasant experience. Is this sentence correct or is it incorrect? When I was little, my brother tried to feed me flies. He told me they were raisins. The sentence is incorrect as it's written. The problem happens right here. This is where the comma splice happens. Okay. But this is a complex sentence because what we have here is a clause that is a dependent clause. Here's an independent clause. And here's another independent clause. When I was little, that's a dependent clause. Has a subject and a verb, I was, but it cannot stand alone. It depends on the next independent clause for it to make sense. My brother tried to feed me flies. Subject, brother, verb is tried. And then here's where the wheels have just completely come off the wagon. We have another subject here and another verb here. And we cannot use a comma ever to splice together two independent clauses. Okay? So let's fix this. Very easy to fix. Very easy to fix. All we have to do is this. Period. Capitalize that. And we're gold. Or we could do this. Semicolon. Okay? All right. Well, I hope this helped. Maybe helped you see it in action, helped got you thinking about sentences and how they work, and perhaps more importantly, how they don't work. The trick is especially if you know you have this, if you have a habit of writing these kinds of sentences, the trick is to really make sure that you budget time in your editing and your proofreading to make sure that you're not writing run-on sentences. I hope this has helped. Let me hear from you. Be kind to each other.